Hello everyone, this is Mr. Muhammad Salama. In this video, we deal with Unit 9, Aim High 6, News and Views. Before we read the text, we have to answer ourselves a question. Are you interested in the news? Are you up to date with current affairs? Only about your country or international? How do you get your news? You may answer this question by yourself. The second question, what kind of news headlines grab your attention? And what sort of news stories make popular reading? And now we are going to listen to the text.
CD 3. Unit 9, page 77. Read, Exercise 3. Making the headlines. Throughout media history, people have tried to make news for publicity purposes. Businesses have come up with all sorts of marketing stunts in an attempt to be newsworthy. Some attempts hit the headlines for the wrong reasons. Or is it true that there's no such thing as bad publicity? And what of the newspaper publisher who needed a new idea to promote his paper and ended up inventing a new sport? Is that news making news making news? Here are 3 tales of attempts to create news with varying degrees of success. The death of Superman. DC Comics is a billion-dollar business, selling millions of comic books every year. But in 1993, the company directors seemingly felt that their product was waning in popularity and that sales were getting stagnant. So they took a huge risk. They killed off their main character, Superman. Superman had been the company's #1 comic title ever since the character's inception in 1938. So when DC Comics brought out the Death of Superman issue, the general public just couldn't believe it. Was this mad marketing stunt going to be professional suicide? The TV news reports of the day interviewed people for their thoughts on the tragic occurrence. From comic book experts to the passing public, everyone had an opinion on the subject. Even people who had outgrown their favorite superhero, or who just thought he was boring, still sat up and paid attention. The newspapers took hold of the story and ran columns discussing the demise of the nation's beloved hero, almost as if he were a real person. The drama played out across the national papers, with people either waxing lyrical about Superman and mourning his passing, or calling DC Comics a shameless publicity seeker. Not surprisingly, therefore, the comic book featuring our hero's death sold out on the first day. There were queues around the block outside comic book stores. More issues were printed, only to be sold out again and again. Millions of readers bought the Death of Superman comic. A great percentage of readers found the story genuinely moving, whereas others were simply buying the issue as a collector's item. The issues that followed, including Funeral for a Friend and, unsurprisingly, The Return of Superman, were equally popular due to renewed interest in the storylines. So the death of a superhero gave rise to a rebirth in sales for DC Comics. The birth of the Tour de France. In 1903, Henri Desgrange, a 35-year-old sports paper editor, had a problem on his hands. The leading sports paper in France, Le Vélo, sold 80,000 copies a day, with a mixture of sports reporting and general news. In comparison, Desgrange's paper, L'Auto, was struggling, with only 25,000 daily copies sold. 3 years earlier, Desgrange had been approached and offered the position of editor by a group of industrialists wanting to set up a new paper to rival Le Vélo. Desgrange was already famous in the French sporting world. In his 20s, he had been a champion cyclist, holding 12 world track records between 1893 and 1895. He'd also written 2 books and was currently director of France's first indoor cycling track in Paris. These sporting credentials had led to him being deemed suitable for the top job at Lotto. However, in 1903, he and his team set up a crisis meeting to discuss the paper's poor circulation. Wanting to contribute, one of his young journalists suggested a new cycle race for that summer. Desgrange was initially cautious, but the paper's financial manager was thrilled with the idea. Lotto announced the new race in its next edition, and Desgrange and his team had to hurriedly organize it. The Tour de France turned out to be a completely new type of sport: bicycle stage racing. It was an outdoor, long-distance, multi-day event, with different stages over varying terrain all round France. The historian, Jim McGurn, said it was a magnificently imaginative invention, a form of odyssey in which the lonely heroism of unpaced riders was pitted against relentless competition and elemental nature. Cycling in the mountains was new territory indeed. Riders complained that they would be eaten by bears in the Pyrenees. Nevertheless, the Tour de France and the paper's promotion of it proved a great success, and circulation immediately jumped to 65,000, later selling more than 500,000 copies a day during the months of subsequent tours. Ironically, the paper eventually died, but the Tour de France lives on as the country's premier international sporting event. Not the world's largest popsicle. In 2005, Snapple, a fruit drink company, made a brave attempt to break a world record. The company wanted to garner favorable publicity for its new range of frozen fruity treats called Snapple on Ice. So on the first day of summer, an enormous kiwi and strawberry popsicle was hauled by truck from New Jersey to Manhattan to be erected in Union Square. The giant pink ice stick certainly attracted a lot of attention. At 35,000 pounds and 25 feet tall, the frozen treat was unmissable. However, the crane hoisting it into position only managed a disappointing 25-degree angle before Snapple officials realized that something was terribly wrong. It was melting, and fast. Floods of sugary liquid were washing over the square. Bemused onlookers started to run as they got caught in the pink tidal wave. What was unsettling was that the fluid just kept coming, said Stuart Claxton, an official witness for the world record attempt. The police and fire departments were summoned to the area to cordon it off, and fire engines attempted to hose the sticky mess away before it caused any more trouble. The giant popsicle was supposed to have been able to withstand the heat for some time, and those responsible were not quite sure why it hadn't. An interesting thing was how the various media channels and newspapers reported the incident. Breaking News Network sent out an emergency alert, warning the public that there was sticky goo all over the area. The New York Post was outraged, writing indignantly about a pedestrian's sprained ankle and 4 skidding cyclists. The New York Times preferred an ironic angle and included a scientific explanation about the temperature an 18% sugar solution usually freezes at. But the best quote came via the Newsday TV program, with a shop owner commenting, "People were pretty bummed out with what was going on with their shoes." Snapple spent a lot of money on the cleanup operation and didn't make a second record attempt.
Okay, after reading, here is an application which requires to match the highlighted words in the text with these definitions. Number 1, producing strong emotion, especially sadness or sympathy. The answer is moving. Number 2, showing no sign of activity or advancement. It means stagnant. Number 3, speaking in an enthusiastic and eloquent manner. This is waxing lyrical. Number 4, regarded, judged. Number 4, deemed. Number 5, raised something, especially by using ropes or machinery. It means hoisting. Number 6, beginning, starting point. It means inception. Number 7, disturbing or upsetting. It means unsettling. Number 8, an unpleasantly sticky substance. It means goo. Number 9, upset or annoyed. It means bummed out. Number 10, a long, eventful journey or experience, physical and or emotional. It means odyssey. Number 11, intensely, constant or persistent. It means relentless. Skilled and powerful, having the force of nature. It means elemental. Number 13, death or end of. It means demise. Number 14, gather or collect. It means garner. Number 15, a stretch of land, especially with regard to its physical features. It's terrain. Here we have an exercise which needs you to pick one of these words in the box and to fill in the gaps from number 1 to 15. Number 1 says, he would space for hours about the talents of his splendid grandchildren. Number 1, he would wax lyrical. Number 2, it's hard to find a good job in a what economy due to slow economic growth and high unemployment. The answer of number 2, stagnant. Number 3, before the TV evening news showed what images of the current war, it warned that viewers may be upset. The answer of number 3, unsettling. Number 4, I'm space because I missed out on getting a ticket to the biggest baseball match of the season. Number 4, I am bummed out. Number 5, the school governing body spaced the exam results unsatisfactory and called the head teacher to account. The answer of number 5 is deemed. Number 6, we have not had any local news coverage since the what of the town's newspaper 3 years ago. The answer is demise. Number 7, his campaign for protecting the environment was so spaced that he eventually won his case. Was so elemental. Number 8, they played the golf match in spite of the terrible weather and battled on through space wind and storms. Number 8, relentless. Number 9, the cargo was space. Up onto the ship. Hoisted. Number 10, since its space, the business has rapidly expanded to become a national retail chain. The answer is inception. Number 11, the article was about the emotional space experienced by a teenager trying to become an athlete. Number 11, the answer is Odyssey. Number 12, they bought expensive boots designed for rough space for their walking holiday in the mountains. Number 12, the answer is rough terrain. Number 13, he gave a what speech at the memorial service of a much loved local citizen. He gave a moving speech. Number 14, their mother demanded to know what the thick space was all over the cooker. The thick goo. Number 15, her new novel has faced several awards? The answer is garnered. And that's all for now. Thank you for watching this video. Goodbye.